Thank you for joining our Azure Enablement Billing webinar. And the host today is going to be the Infrastructure as a Sales Solutions Team. And we are the go-to resource for both infrastructure as a service sales, customer success, and modern support teams for enablement questions. We also write the IaaS-related knowledge base articles, and I would like to highlight how great on-demand resource they are. There is a high chance that if you transact Azure, you were, are, or already, or will be working with us at some point. In the agenda today, we are going to cover Azure NCE billing and invoicing in general. We will show where to find and how to pay cloud invoices in Xvantage. And then we will deep dive into the 3 reports available to view Azure usage. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and whoever is not presenting will answer them. If you would like to learn more about any of the topics you hear, please reach out to the sales or customer success team who will forward your request to our team or will find you the best resource for the specific question. Now let's talk about Azure NCE billing in general. The Azure NCE subscriptions are active until canceled, and the billing period is a full calendar month. Invoices are available in both local currency and US dollars, except the reserved instances, which will be charged in USD. I mentioned this because we have guests both from the US and Canada. The Azure invoices are available on Xvantage on or after the 15th of the following calendar month. It may look like it is delayed, but as it is usage-based, the cost needs to be consolidated by Microsoft before they can invoice us. If you are using the Ingram Micro invoices to bill your end customers and your invoice date on Xvantage is set before the 15th of the month, let's say if it was the 10th of February, the invoice will exclude cloud costs, and those will be added to your next month's bill on March 10th, which will cause a delay. Hence, we advise to set the invoice date on or after the 20th of the month. And now this is referring to your invoice date on the Xvantage platform. The invoice on Xvantage is reseller level and in a PDF format, but you can download a cloud report with every invoice to help you filter the costs as needed. Now I'd like to show you high level how the usage is captured and what reports you have to leverage. So if you would like to view your cloud usage or bill your end customer in advance, not all is lost. You have access to them before the 15th of the month. There are more views to view them even without guesstimating. So let's start with the earliest report available to both the end customer and you as a reseller, if you have the right privileges. Azure usage is recorded in the end customer Azure Portal, and Azure NCE provides free access to the Azure Cost Management tool to view the most current Azure usage. It is important to note that the cost in the ACM tool are at Microsoft retail rate. They do not include any reseller discounts or credits. Neither are your margins considered. Your actual invoice from Ingram will be slightly lower and will include the margin. You will see all Azure usage at reseller cost as well. A detailed report can be downloaded at any time from the ACM tool, and Chris Schofield will show you how. The Azure usage from the Azure Portal is then synchronized with the Microsoft Partner Center on distributor tenant level at least daily. And while the usage in the Partner Center cannot be viewed by indirect resellers, that's why I kind of put it in a black box. Ingram Micro makes it available via the Azure Usage Report, which will be referred to as AUR moving forward. The AUR is available through the Microsoft Online Management Extension, or MOMI, and offers open and closed billing reports. Ellie Simpson will go into the details how to order MOMI and what the open and closed Azure usage report is. The AUR is one of the options that you can leverage to bill your end customers before receiving the cloud invoice from Ingram Micro. and the cost will be an exact match. Those should be available, I would say, the second of the following calendar month, because the Microsoft Partner Center is 24 to 48 hours behind the Azure Portal, where the actual usage is recorded. So finally, when the past calendar month's Azure costs are finalized by Microsoft and uploaded to Xvantage, you have access to a cloud report, previously known as the RDE report, from which you can filter the Azure usage to bill the end customer, even if they were not added to your monthly invoice. So Mark will go into the details what the cloud report is and how to filter the costs. Now I would like to hand the microphone to Hannah, and she will go over Xvantage invoices and payment options.
As an Ingram Micro Cloud partner, you know that paying your invoices on time is crucial to keep your end customers running smoothly. But sometimes you may forget to pay an invoice or get confused about the payment process. I'm here to walk you through a couple of simple steps to help you locate your invoices and pay them quickly and easily. To start it off, if you are looking to pay an invoice and you are on net terms, you can click on Pay Invoices and it'll take you to the Bill Trust Payment Portal. And if you'd like to review past invoices, on the home screen, you'll see an invoice box and click on View All. To pay unpaid invoices for credit cards, you'll need to navigate to My Business and then to Invoices, where you will see your unpaid invoices and make a payment to the invoices as needed. You will then see a screen with different options for filtering, such as all invoices, upcoming invoices, invoice numbers, and statuses. You will also have an opportunity to pay an invoice here by selecting the invoices you are interested in paying. You also have the option to download and export invoices and choose different document types and invoice statuses. If you'd like to learn more about the Xvantage portal and how to navigate, there's office hours to help assist and answer your questions. Now I will pass it off to Mark to discuss cloud reports.
Hey everyone, thank you, Hannah. So my name is Mark Bixby. I'm covering the cloud reports, and as Kinga already mentioned, formerly these were known on our platform as RDE reports, which stood for Reporting and Data Export. Since we've moved to Xvantage, we're now referring to them as cloud reports. I'm going to show you how to find and download the reports. Then we'll cover a few of the important columns, and finally I'll show you one of the ways that you could break down a report just to make it a little bit easier to read. Again, Kinga mentioned if you have questions, just drop them in the chat, and whoever's not presenting will go ahead and try and answer those, and we'll also have a Q&A at the end. So I'm sure most of you have seen the Xvantage portal by now, but when you start, you want to go to the My Business section on the left-hand pane, and then click on Cloud Reports. And there's going to be two options when you get to this screen. So there's Reports and Schedule. And by default, when you load onto this page, it's automatically going to be on the Reports tab. These are one-time reports that you can create whenever for whatever specified time period. I refer to them as an ad hoc report, but to get started, you would just select Create Report. And then starting from the top. So you have to select a data set. In almost all cases, you would use a provisioned orders report, which is going to contain all the line items that you were already invoiced for or are about to be invoiced for. Then you would go ahead and give it a title and select a date range. So this is not to be mistaken with the consumption period. For example, if you were to pull a report from December 1st to December 31st, you're getting the data that your company was billed for in that time period and not when the actual Azure consumption took place. So if it's a December report, you're probably going to get November consumption because Azure is billed monthly in arrears. But finally, you would select a report view. I've been on this team for over 2 years, and I think I've used a full report maybe once. In almost every scenario, you'll find that the short report will contain more than enough information. So that's always going to be my recommendation. And then once you hit create, the report will start generating. And then for creating a scheduled report, the process is very similar. You would make sure you're in that schedule tab, and then you'll go ahead and click on schedule report. And you can see here, it looks almost identical. The only difference is rather than a date range, it's going to ask you to select a report type. So there's a couple different options there. Most commonly, you would probably do a report with every invoice. So that just means every time an invoice is created for your company, it's going to automatically generate a report with everything that's on that invoice. So if you're ever looking to get an Excel version of your invoice, you can have it created automatically every time the invoice is created. You can also schedule a monthly or a daily report if that's something you're interested in. But then everything else here is the same as that one-time report. Once you click on create here, it's not automatically going to create a report. It's going to wait until the event that you listed in the report type is triggered. So for example, if you select report with every invoice, a report's not going to be generated until your next invoice. But after you've created either a one-time report or the scheduled report is ready, you can just navigate back to this same page and you can click on download. It's either going to open in a desktop app or a browser, depending on what settings you have enabled. So now we'll look at a report. So one thing I want to mention here is that these reports contain all of your cloud business. It's not just Azure consumption. So since we're focusing on Azure billing in this webinar, I'm just looking at Azure here. The screenshot that I have is already filtered by Azure New Commerce Experience. If you're not familiar, you would just select all the data, add a filter, and then just filter by Azure NCE. A lot of these columns are pretty easily interpreted. You can see on this page, we have the reseller name, the end customer name, the subscription name, all pretty easy to understand, but there are a couple of columns that I believe are super important, but maybe not so obvious as those. Yeah, so starting from the top here, the description column is going to contain the Ingram subscription ID, which is on our Xvantage. It's not specific to Microsoft at all. And then there's the Azure subscription ID, which is specific to Microsoft's platform. The service name, so you have virtual machines, bandwidth, virtual networks, then the consumption period. Next one down is the extended price. So if you're operating in the US, the extended price is what you as a reseller were billed. If you're in a non-US region, then the next row right down, pre-tax total, that's what you would want to refer to, if you're in Canada, for example. The invoice date was the day that this line item appeared on your cloud invoice. And then the start date and the end date, again, is the time period that the consumption took place. So you'll notice that the consumption period is in the description, as well as the start and end date columns, which are separate columns. The end customer extended price is the Microsoft retail rates. So this is what you would compare to the Azure Portal numbers. This is what most of our partners would bill their end customer, especially if that end customer has access to their Azure Portal, because these are the numbers that are going to match that Azure Portal. And then finally, there's the vendor subscription number. So this is the Azure Plan ID and the Azure Subscription ID separated by a colon. So a lot of the times this column is very useful if you have a subscription ID from the Microsoft platform and you want to find it on your cloud report. You can search that subscription ID and you'll find it in this column. Another thing I want to mention is that Azure consumption is grouped by the service name on invoices and reports. So for example, you could have 8 separate virtual machines running in the same subscription, but since the reports are grouping all like services together, you'd only see one line item for virtual machines. And that's the same for storage accounts, VPN gateways, virtual networks. You're just going to see one line item for each within each subscription. And then one of the best reasons to use these cloud reports is to calculate margin. So we get a lot of questions about this on our team. And if you were to come ask me what margin you're making on any Azure NCE business, this is exactly what I would do. So the formula that I use is 1 minus the reseller cost divided by the Microsoft retail rates. So again, if you're in US, you would use the extended price as that reseller cost. If you're in another region like Canada, you would use that pre-tax total. Once you hit enter on this formula, it's going to be a decimal, so you'll probably see 0.07. I just, collect all that. I add a format for percentage. Yeah, I think that's very useful. You can see here that a couple of these, like 9.95, the reason that you'll see small differences in the percentage of margin is just because all of these are rounded to 2 decimal places for dollars. So when Microsoft is calculating the consumption numbers, a lot of the times it can go out to 8 decimal places for a meter cost. So sometimes you'll see a little bit of variability in the margin. And then a common way that I and a lot of our partners would view Azure billing data is with pivot tables. If you don't have much experience with Excel, you would select all of the data in the sheet and then go to the Insert tab and select Pivot Table. And I almost always put this in a new sheet. That way, sheet 1 has the pivot table and sheet 2 has all of the data. There's lots of different ways that you could potentially create a pivot table with this data. This is one of my preferred ways, but if you have a chance, I think it's a good idea to just mess around with it a little bit and see what kind of view works for your company. But I would add the subscription name to the filters field. That way we can filter by Azure NCE only. And then I would drag the customer name and the description to the rows field. And then finally, the reseller cost as well as the end user cost into the values field. And it'll look like this. So as you can see, I use that drop-down filter on the top to filter by Azure NCE. And then there's little carrots so you can expand and collapse each customer. And you'll see all the descriptions, all the services that they were billed for in both your cost as a reseller, as well as what the Azure portal is going to reflect. So I hope this helps a little bit. I know it probably was a little quick that I ran through it, so if you do want to hear the same information again, we've created lots of knowledge base articles as well as YouTube videos. I personally myself created a couple of YouTube videos that walk you through everything that I just talked about. So we're going to share those resources here at the end. But for now, I'll hand it over to Ellie, and she's going to go over the Azure usage reports.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everybody. As Mark said, I am Ellie Simpson, and today I am going to talk to you about the Azure Usage Report that is available on the Xvantage platform. When gaining access to the Azure Usage Report, or as we refer to it as the AUR, this can be completed once you're logged into the Xvantage platform by selecting My Business and then clicking on Cloud Services vertical. Once at that step, you will need to have access to the Microsoft Online Management tab that is inside the Xvantage Portal platform. If the Microsoft Online Management tab is not showing, as it is here in this example, please reach out to our modern support team for help in gaining access. There are 2 options available within the AUR tool for either an open or a closed billing report to be generated and then exported. Both reports will be generated and downloaded to an Excel CSV file. The information that's housed within these reports provides the usage information for all resources that are in your customer's Azure portal, and all of your customers are within one report. Reserved instance pricing will not be included in the AUR report as they have a set price and it is not consumption-based. The pricing for RIs can be viewed either in the cloud reports that Mark just went over or in your invoice that Hannah was showing us. When you request an open report, it will generate the data from the first of the current month to the day usage information is available. So for example, if you're going to export a report for today for an open report, it would be from February 1st until today's date of when the data has synced and been received. There is also options available for your local currencies in addition to USD, and once selected, you would be able to then export the report. The Azure Usage Close Report will be for a full calendar billing month of all of the data that was within that time period. The close billing AUR reports become available once the previous month's usage billing has been closed and we've received the information from Microsoft. Once it is ready and it's been uploaded to the Xvantage portal platform under the MOMI and the AUR tool, this occurs usually mid-month, and it corresponds with the timing of when the cloud reports are available, as Kinga explained in the flow of the Azure NCE usage and billing earlier. When you are selecting a close report, you have options available for specific periods, for as many or as few months as needed. The information that's, again, included in the report will contain a day-by-day line item breakdown for each resource in the Azure environment for all of your customers. Once all close reports have been selected, you can then export. Depending on how many customers you guys have or the size of their environments, these files, once completed to be generated and downloaded, can be quite large. So the open and the closed billing reports that have been downloaded will look very similar to the cloud reports that Mark just went over. It will contain some of the same data from the provision orders report. The main difference again here is the AUR report that gathers all of the usage from along with a lot of other pertinent data. We do recommend that with the amount of information that's generated within these reports, that again, creating a pivot table or filtering the information will allow you to slice and dice the information for review. And I know Mark kind of went into that in detail, but these are some of the important columns that I'm going to highlight for the Azure Usage Report. These are usually utilized the most when you are creating the report and are very beneficial. We found these are essential data points to be able to create the pivot table within, customer names, meter types, categories, resource groups, and unit prices. These are the data sets that, again, utilize the most when gathering the information for your customers or your billing needs. Another difference is that within this report, you will not have to calculate your margin. There are separate columns that show your cost, the customer's cost, and the margin. And then here would be the example of what the pivot table breakdown would look like with all the pivot table fields selected from our important column section. I do hope that you found some of this information useful about our Azure Usage Reporting tool. Now I'm going to turn it over to Chris to discuss our Azure Cost Management.
Thank you, Ellie. The Azure Cost Management tool, or ACM as I'll be referring to, is a tool offered by Microsoft to assist you with your end customer's Azure consumption by allowing you to view the most recent resource consumption cost. It is important to note that the cost you see within ACM is Microsoft retail cost without any discount. You may have previously referred to this as MSRP. So next, let's look at how to access ACM from an Azure subscription. To access the ACM, you will first navigate to the Azure portal and log in with your specific credentials. Once you're logged in, you will want to access the subscription by searching for subscriptions in the search bar or clicking on the subscription icon listed on your screen. If you have not accessed the subscription tab before, you may not see the icon and you will need to search for it utilizing the search bar. When you click on the subscription icon, you will be presented with a subscription or subscriptions your end customer has in their portal. If you are not seeing your customer subscription or subscriptions after clicking on the subscription icon, this could be due to your role-based access or RBAC. If you are experiencing this issue, you may need to get with your customer to discuss your appropriate role needed on the subscription in order for you to gain access. So now let's look at the ACM tool. So once you click on the specific subscription you want to view, you will be taken to the ACM screen. There's a lot of information here, but for today's webinar, we'll be focusing on the information provided within the Cost Analysis tab. So to access the Cost Analysis tab, you will click on the Cost Analysis tab located on the left-hand side. Once you've clicked on cost analysis, you'll be presented with multiple graphs that break down your customers' resource usage and consumption. Within the Azure Portal, Microsoft has also provided you with a cost by resource report. This is a breakdown that is great for digging into the details of your customers' Azure resource utilization day to day, week to week, or month over month. To access the cost by resource report, you'll want to click on View and change it to cost by resource. So once you're on the cost by resource screen, you can filter by specific dates and download the report as an Excel file to use and send to your customers. Lastly, the cost by resource report works great for billing and invoicing when utilized alongside the other reports presented to you in this webinar. Thank you so much for your time. And now back to you, Kinga.
Thank you all for the presentations. And now we've reached the Q&A sections where I will address first the questions that were sent in prior to the webinar. And later I will let the team answer those that were in the chat. So first of all, I would like to highlight the knowledge-based articles as your on-demand go-to resource. We try our best to keep them updated, and if you are missing something, let us know. We have a YouTube channel where we have mini video series presenting the exact same information in hopefully very digestible format to create pivot tables from your ACM cost by resource reports, the AUR, and the cloud reports, and even some security webinars or like mini videos. We are going to share all the links in the chat with you and later in a summary. Again, if you need anything, please let us know. We are more than happy to create more resources for you. Now, I would like to address first something that's not strictly billing related, but it is critical to you to receive your well-earned margin. And that is AOBO, or admin on behalf of. So the admin on behalf of needs to be in place to receive margin on any cloud usage. If AOBO is not established, both Ingram and you as a reseller is paying Microsoft retail costs. We have documentation on what AOBO is and how to establish AOBO. I would also like to highlight that some end customers tend to remove admin on behalf of, and both you and us learn only at the next billing period that none of us received margin on it. In the documentation, there is information how to keep an eye on it, but just make sure that you you'll explain to your end customer why AOBO is important. Again, now let's go to the questions that we've received prior. Someone would like to understand what is the Azure ordering process, including reservations. While the Azure SKU is available on Xvantage, to place the first ever Azure order, there are a few requirements that need to be met. For the best experience, we strongly advise you to reach out to our sales teams who will be more than happy to assist. I shared the team aliases in this slide. Please take a screenshot, but we can also share it with you after the webinar. If you, for some reason, still insist to do it on your own, we do have a knowledge-based article how to help you get started. Another question was, what's the best way to bill for a variable data charges? As you've noticed, there are a few reports that you can leverage, the ACM tool and the AUR, the open AUR reports that provide you almost exact data or as close as possible to the invoice you are going to receive from Ingram. You don't need to guesstimate. They are available on demand, both of them. Please leverage those if you want to go down the path of invoicing your end customer before receiving the invoice from Ingram Micro. If you have any questions and you want to learn again more about the ACM tool or the AUR, please set up a call with us and we are more than happy to have a one-on-one session with any of you. Another question was for how to set up automated billing and integrations with ConnectWise and QuickBooks. We have a dedicated team to help you with those. And their email alias, again, is shared on the screen. They are Marketplace PSA, ingrammicro.com, or PSM Canada, ingrammicro.com. So please reach out to them. They should be able to help you with all your ConnectWise or QuickBooks integration questions. An additional question was how to access monthly bill for a given customer in a customer-friendly PDF format. Unfortunately, there are no end customer level PDF bills. You would have to log in into the end customer portal, Xvantage portal. We do not have that yet available in Xvantage. We would also not recommend necessarily to use those PDFs. We would highly recommend to use the cloud reports and create your own invoices based on the filtered results. There are multiple reasons why we would recommend that. First of all, you have all end customers in one report. It is easy. Then you may decide to give some discount to your end customers compared to the Microsoft retail price. Then you can make that decision on your own. Otherwise, it can be leveraged for what you want. Again, there is no PDF format for end customer invoices currently available. I see a question how we can change the invoice date. To change the invoice date, please reach out to Modern Support and they are going to help you with changing the invoice date on Xvantage. That's a great question. Again, we advise to have your invoice date set on the 20th. So admin on behalf of, I see a question about admin on behalf of. Admin on behalf of should be established when you first time purchase the Azure subscription, because you would like to receive the margin right from the get-go. We have documentation in the knowledge-based articles how to have AOBO established. Again, it is an action that needs to be taken on the end customer side. They need to provide or establish the admin on behalf of for the reseller and for Ingram Micro. So I did not share how to open tickets with Modern Support in the Xvantage platform. You can access and just open a ticket through Xvantage, but their email alias is shared in the chat, and again, we can share it in the summary. If there are no further questions, thank you very much for attending and have a great rest of your day.